Hey guys, how you doing? What's going on? Just wanted to actually talk about the written responses right here and a little bit about the create performance task. First thing is in your create performance task survival guide that I gave you, I printed it out and shared this with you. A couple things. All right, you already know what's required, but for the PDF, one really good resource right here, and this is on page 11 of your survival guide, is use CodePrint to make a PDF of your program. The advantage of that is if you click on that, you'll see basically that you can just take your program code like I am right there. This is my whole code of my program, and just highlight everything. Whoops, highlight everything right here. Copy it, and then you go right over here and you're just going to go paste it. And what happens is when you go and print right now, and you want to just save as PDF in your browser right there, but when you actually save this, it will actually go and for the PDF will have the line numbers right there. So it'll be convenient if you're referring to the line numbers, which you will in your written response. Okay, so that's a good tool to use right there. Your video, you already know I gave an example, and I'll give another example of what I'm going to do in my video. Okay, no more than 1 minute. Okay. Make sure your video demonstrates input, program functionality, and output, and that's all it needs to do. Okay. Okay, let's go on to the actual written responses. So first of all, just as an example of your actual video, okay, this is all you need to do. Full functionality, input, and output, as it just says input, output, and functionality. So right here, okay, sorry. So right here, I would first go and run my program. First, I'd put in something that actually works in my program, right? So there's a zip code that actually works right there. And I would just go and scroll down, show the entire output there, okay? Then I would go ahead and do something else that works right here. I have 3 things that work. You might just have, one actually input, but I had 3 different inputs. Okay, this is the boroughs right here. That was a zip code. And this, by the way, is once again showing the New York City public Wi-Fi locations. Okay, and then this is just one random Wi-Fi location right here. Okay, so notice, just to remind everybody, my particular app is just outputting the neighborhood and addresses right here. And then lastly, I'm just going to go and show one that does not work. Okay, and it says, sorry, no Wi-Fi was on. Done. Okay, so I just had to do 1, 2, 3, and then one that didn't work. Okay, for you, maybe it's just one that works, one that doesn't work. Okay, good. So let's go to the written responses. All right, this is also in your survival guide, so I'm just going to read their advice. First, it says, describe the overall purpose of the program. The advice is the purpose of your program is the intended goal or objective of the program. In other words, it's what the program is supposed to do. If you made a game, an app, or some other kind of project, just quickly describe what kind of program it is and how it will be used or played. Okay, so what did I say? I said, the purpose of this program is to inform users of the specific neighborhoods and addresses of public Wi-Fi locations in New York City. Simple as that, okay? 2, describe what functionality the program is demonstrating in your video. Let's look what the advice says right here. So make sure that you connect the purpose of your program to what is shown in the video. If you only have one feature working, then describe the purpose of the feature. Okay, no problem. So my app might be a little more complicated than a lot of people's because I have 3 different inputs. Okay, but anyway, so let's go and see what I say. I said the video shows the following. When you enter a zip code and press the Find by Zip button, all the Wi-Fi locations for this zip code will be output as the address and neighborhood, which are 2 different lists. If you select a borough from the drop-down list, all Wi-Fi locations in that borough will be output as, once again, address and neighborhood. Okay? Maybe I should have had that. Okay. If you press the button titled Find Random Wi-Fi Location, the program will output one random Wi-Fi location in New York City. Once again, as an address and neighborhood. Good. If a zip code is entered which does not exist in New York City, the program puts out a statement telling the user, sorry, no Wi-Fi was found. Okay. So I was specific here, but it's just the general functionality of the program. Now, mine might be a little longer than yours because, again, I have 3 inputs. You may have only had 1 or 2. Okay, but I'm just explaining what you saw in the video. Okay, let's go on. Describe the input and output of the program demonstrated in the video. All right, I already kind of did that, but basically you're a little more specific here. Let's see what the survivor guy says. Okay, make sure you specifically use the words input and output in your response to force yourself to describe specifically how the user provides input in the video and how the program gives back output. Okay, no problem. The input is either typing a zip code into an input box and pressing the Find by Zip button, selecting a borough in a drop-down box, or pressing the button titled Find Random Wi-Fi Location. That's pretty obvious, right? It's either this, that, or that. That's the input. The output is going to be the selected addresses and neighborhoods of the corresponding zip code, borough, or random location. Okay. Pretty simple and to the point. Okay. Capture and paste. So now we're at 3B right now. Okay. Capture and paste 2 program code segments you develop during the administration of this task that contain a list or other collection type being used to manage complexity in your program. I think pretty much everybody had a list, okay, as far as I know. All right, and it does give approximate 200 words. I'll talk about it at the end, but I think you'll probably be okay with the amount of words, all right? Anyway, and also, by the way, code does not count as word because this will be, once again, when you put this in on the College Board, you're going to take a screenshot and then download that to your computer, and then you're going to upload it to the College Board, okay? So you take a screenshot, download it, save it, I should say, actually. Take a screenshot, save it as a picture, and then you upload it to College Board, okay? First program code segment must show how the data has been stored in a list. Let's see what they see here. Okay. Same list initialized and processed. Be very careful that you only include 2 code segments. They're talking about right here, these 2, and that they are both referring to the same list, even if the process data is moved to a new list. Okay. So the first program code segment must show how the data has been stored in a list. Easy enough. Here we go. Variable zip list equals get column and New York City public Wi-Fi locations postal code. Okay. There's my first one. Most people, I think, use the code.org data. Maybe there might have been some people that made their own list up, but anyway. Next one, second program code segment must show the data in the same list being used, such as creating new data from existing data or accessing multiple elements in a list as part of the program's purpose. Let's see what they say here. Be very careful that you only include 2 code segments and that they are both referring to the same list, even if the process data is moved to a new list. Okay. And they are both referring to the same list. Okay. All right. Not sure exactly what they mean right here, but anyway. Right here, if you notice right here, so how is this process data creating new data from, specifically what they said is, how do we answer this question? Is creating new data from existing data, okay? And the same list is being used. So that same list, which is zip list right there, dot length, is being used right here, right? If you notice, if info equals zip list I, or info equals borough list I. So it's going through a for loop right here, right? So an info, and don't worry, we're going to explain this more in detail later on. But notice right here, what they're saying is the new data from previous data. So if they find a match of info, and info is, of course, my parameter, and that actually, if you look at my code, that's either going to be the zip code or the borough. If there is a match right here, then we are going to append the filter neighborhood list. and it's going to be all the corresponding neighborhood lists for that particular match that they found, and all the corresponding address lists of that particular match. So when I put in 10031, it found every match of 10031 in my data, and they took all of those neighborhoods and all of those addresses and put them in these filtered lists. Okay? So that's it right there. I guess I did not have to show all of this from 36 to 49 now that I read the instructions. So probably better right here when I fix that is if I just actually showed, because it did not say to show the rest of it, just said new data from old data, right, is what they had said specifically, is right here, new data from existing data, right? So no problem. So I'm just going to go now and make sure you, when you actually paste these, include the actual line numbers as well. That's important because you're probably going to refer to it. So right here, all right, I could actually save this right here. I'm not going to do that now, but I could save this. And then if I'm on the College Board website, I would just go and upload it there. But anyway, this automatically copies. This is just a Google Doc. So I'm just going to put it right there. Okay. All good. There it is. Okay. That's all I need. All right, go on. Then provide a written response that does all three of the following. Identifies the name of the list being used and the response. All right, this is pretty easy. The name of the list being processed is zip list. Okay. All right. An easy way to lose points here is simply forgetting to say the name of the list. Start off your response by saying the name of the list. Okay, there we go. Describe what the data contained in a list represents in your program. Okay, so it says right here, explain what type of data is contained in your list and what it stands for in your program and how that helps them fulfill the program's purpose. Okay. All right, now we're going to do so let's go ahead and explain that right there, how it helps in your program's purpose. Zip list represents all the zip codes in New York City that have at least one public Wi-Fi location. This information is given to us in the data set, and the zip codes are stored in this list as string. Okay? I think that's good enough. The program's purpose, once again, it did say to refer to that. Program's purpose is to output all the public Wi-Fi locations. So I said it's all zip list represents all the zip codes in New York City that have at least one public Wi-Fi location. So there we go. We referred to it contributes to the purpose because it is showing all the zip codes that have public Wi-Fi. Okay, good enough. Explain how the selected list manages complexity of your program by explaining why your program code could not be written or how it could be written differently if you did not use the list. All right, this is the really hard and important one. We'll get through it, guys. Let's just do it step by step, okay? So let's see what they say here. Probably have a lot of advice. Do not simply say that you'd have needed to use variables. All right, obviously that is what you're going to state that, but you have to give more specifics. Give more details about the specific variables you need to create and what information they need to store. In some instances, you would be nearly impossible to develop your program code without a list, but be specific in saying how you need to change the way it works against stating specific programming constructs, variables you need to use. Explain how your program allows you to use a list of any size without substantial changes to your program code. Okay, no problem. Let's do it. My program code uses 4 lists overall for the zip codes, boroughs, neighborhoods, and addresses of each public Wi-Fi location in New York City. Okay, you can see right there, right? We have right there 4 different lists. Creating individual variables for each item in these lists would be very difficult, time-consuming, and would use an overwhelming number of lines of code. Okay, it would be, probably thousands actually. Also creating procedures matching zip codes and boroughs with the user input and then selecting the corresponding addresses and neighborhoods would be quite difficult and code heavy. These items would have to be checked one by one. Okay. Basically what I'm trying to say here is, I would have to go and create so many different variables just for the zip codes. And then for the addresses, and I'd have to make sure that they would match properly. So I'd have to say like zip 1, address 1, zip 2, address 2, and do that, thousands. All right, so that's what I'm trying to state right there. In my program, while traversing the zip code list, traversing this means going through each item of the zip code list or borough list, the user input can easily be checked for a match. Once this match is found, we can append the corresponding address and location to the filtered list. So basically, once they find a match for either the zip code or the borough, we can go and find that corresponding address, okay? And we're going to add the address. And by the way, it's not location. I think I meant to say neighborhood, right? Is what it adds on there. So let me fix that. So it adds the corresponding address and neighborhood to the filtered list. Okay, good enough. I think that's pretty good. Okay, now there are other examples that I posted to Google Classroom for this one. You should look at those also, just to make sure that you're covering your tracks and everything. This is a really important one. This right here. Okay, this is part 3, number 5 right here. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry, 3B, number 5. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, 3C. Capture and paste 2 programming code segments you developed during the administration of this task that contain a student-developed procedure that implements an algorithm used in your program and a call to that procedure. The first program code segment must be a student-developed procedure that defines the program's name and return type, if necessary. You don't have to have return. Contains and uses one or more parameters that have an effect on the functionality of the procedure, implements an algorithm that includes sequencing, selection, and iteration. We talked a lot about that in class. Okay, so now I'm going to do the entire function. I do need this, right? I need the entire function that I have right here, okay? Because they need this right here to show the procedure's name, the parameters, and algorithms that show sequencing, selection, iteration. I'm also showing the entire thing because later on I'm going to show calls to the function, and I need calls that actually run on separate lines of code. So I'm doing the entire function procedure there, okay? Make sure it has the name and the parameter right there, which is info. There it is, okay? Second program code segment must show where your student-developed procedure is being called in your program. So this is right here, wherever it is being called in your program. Let's see here. So I had called in the zip button right there and the borough drop down right there. So see where it's called filter. So that's an argument right there, zip. Okay. Wherever you're calling it, remember that's called an argument in the parentheses. And then right here, filter borough. So I have 2 different arguments, but 1 parameter, which is called info. Okay, there we go. All right, I think that's good enough. We don't need to look at what the survivor guide said for that. All right, provide a written response that does both the following. Describes in general what the identified procedure does and how it contributes to the overall functioning of the program. All right, this is good. Let's see what they say about this one. Okay, let's see here. First, the what. This part asks you to describe what your algorithm does. When answering the what question, focus on the user's experience. For example, the function changes the score by 1 and checks if either player has won, or this function adds another item to the user's cart after they've selected it and calculates the new total cost. Okay, so you have to explain the what right here. Okay. All right, let's see what I said. The procedure filter actually filters both the neighborhood list and the address list according to either the zip code or borough parameter that was selected by the user. This filter data is then outputted to the screen using set text. Okay, so this procedure filter, it filters both the neighborhood list and the address list according to either the zip code or borough parameter that was selected by the user. So what I mean by that is that right here, if somebody selected a zip code right here, then this zip code argument is put into the parameter right there. And then it goes through the loop right there. Once they find that correct zip code, it went and it filters this neighborhood list right there, filters the address list. That's what I'm trying to say right there, okay? If it's the borough list, it does the same thing, except it just finds a match for that particular borough. All right. And then it's output of the screen using set text. Okay. I think that's pretty good. All right. Next, explain in detailed steps how the algorithm implemented in the identified procedure works. Your explanation must be detailed enough for someone else to recreate it. Okay. Let's take a look at what they say right here. This part asks you to describe how the algorithm does what it does. When answering the how question, focus on specifically talking through how your code runs, referring to specific lines of code whenever possible. For example, lines 20 to 24 increase the score by adding 1 to the value in the total score. All right, variable. Or lines 110 and 120 traverse the list, storing the price of all the items in the cart and then add them up, scoring the total and the total cost variable. Okay, so let's see how I did. The procedure filter has one parameter, info. The parameter is passed an argument, which is either going to be the zip code or the borough name selected by the user. All right. So the parameter is passed an argument, which was either the zip code or the borough name that was selected by the user. First, the filtered neighborhood and address lists are cleared. So there is not leftover data from previous uses.